right, these are your notes for unit rate. So for these, you are going to need a pair of scissors, a sheet of notebook paper, a calculator, a pencil, and some tape or some glue so that we can glue this onto a sheet of paper. So I'm going to start off by taking this and I'm just going to cut around the solid line. Right, so I'm left with something that looks like this. Once I've cut up the solid lines, I'm also going to cut up these solid lines until I reach the dotted lines. The dotted lines tell me where I'm going to fold. So I'm going to cut until I get to the dotted line, cut until I get to the dotted line. Right. And now I'm going to do my folds. So I'm going to turn it actually this way. I'm going to fold each one of these flaps down. Okay, and then I'm going to pull these up so it kind of holds it down. It looks like this. Okay, so we're going to talk about ratios today, and ratios is something that you actually did in 6th grade, but they're very much needed for this next chapter, which is chapter 5, all about proportionality. So it says word ratio equals known ratio equals unknown ratio. And that's kind of how we set it up. And it reminds us down here that the denominator of the unknown ratio is always 1. So when we're talking about a unit rate, like today, a unit rate is just a special type of ratio where it's always a comparison to 1. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to do the first example. It says 120 eggs from 20 chickens. How many eggs per chicken? How many eggs from 8 chickens? Okay, so the word per is really important to us because per means for every one. Okay, so when it says word ratio, that kind of goes back to last chapter where we would say, okay, what am I comparing? I'm going to put E for eggs and C for chicken. And I know what goes on the top and the bottom because it goes in the order. Eggs on top, per chicken. Remember, per is a word that means division, so I'm going to put that division sign in there, but I'm going to write it as a fraction mark. So I did my word ratio, showing that I'm comparing eggs per chicken. And then my known ratio, what do I know? I know there's 120 eggs for every 20 chickens. Okay. And I want to know how many eggs there are per 1 chicken. Okay, that's our unknown ratio. The denominator will always be 1. So I could put an x up here, and then I can solve one of 2 ways. If I can easily do some division, like in this one, I could say, well, 20, I made 20 into 1 by dividing by 20. So 120 divided by 20 will give me my answer. Okay, but if I get something that I can't do that with, then I would do my cross multiply. But because we're dealing with just unit rates today, we should have no problem. It's always divide by whatever number is on the bottom of this one. So now I'm going to use my calculator and I'm going to say 120. So I'm going to write it down here, 120 divided by 20. That's going to give me my unit rate. And I find out the answer is 6. Now I want to label this, and this actually tells me my label too. My label is 6 eggs per chicken. So a unit rate label always has 2 parts. Okay, it's not just one label. Here it's eggs, and then they're always separated with the word per chicken. So 6 eggs per chicken. Now I can go ahead and answer the second question. How many eggs from 8 chickens? Well, if I know it's 6 eggs per chicken, and I have 8 chickens. All I have to do is multiply those together to get my answer. I know that I will have 48 eggs from 6 chickens. All right, let's try it again. So word ratio, known ratio, unknown ratio. So let's start with our word ratio first for this one. $55 for 20 people. How much per person? Okay, so in this case, I'm talking about money per person. So fill in what I know. Let's do the known ratio. The known ratio is $55 per every 20 people. I want to know how much it is for every one person. So remember, what did I do to 20 to make it into 1? This is almost the same as last time. I'm going to divide by 20. So I'm going to do the same thing up here. That means to solve my unit rate, I'm going to do 55 divided by 20. Now, if I get a decimal answer here, I'm going to round to the hundredths position because we're talking about money. And money, we always round to the hundredths position if needed. Now, if you put 55 divided by 20 in your calculator, you're going to get 2 and 75 hundredths. So perfect. It ends in the hundredths position. I didn't even need to round the X up there. And it was talking about money, so let's put a label on there. So $2.75 per person. Now, I did 2 labels. Okay, here's my first label, dollars per person. So remember, 2 labels in a unit rate. So how much for 6 people? Well, if it's $2.75 for one person, and I have 6 people, I'm going to multiply them together to get my answer. So let's see, $2.75 times 6 would tell me that it's going to cost $16.50 for 6 people. Easy peasy, right? I'm hoping these are, oh yeah, I remember doing this last year. All right, last one, unknown ratio. Okay, so word ratio, known ratio, unknown ratio. So let's start with our word ratio. 250 miles in 4 hours. How many miles per hour? Miles per hour. So I'm going to write miles per hour. So there's our word ratio. Now let's do our known ratio. We know 250 miles in 4 hours. Okay, so now let's do our unknown ratio. How many miles per hour, per 1 hour? Okay, and we're trying to figure out the miles. So what did I do to 4 to make it a 1? I divided by 4. So I got to do the same thing on the top, 250 divided by 4. So that's my problem. In my calculator, I'm going to do 250 divided by 4. That's going to give me my unit rate. So 250 divided by 4 is 62 and 5/10. And what does that represent? It represents miles per hour. Okay, so I abbreviated a little bit. If you want to use a dash for per, you can. And in this case, since we're talking about speed, miles per hour, you could actually write MPH, and people would know what that understands or means. How many miles in 7 hours? Well, I know 1 hour is 62 and 5/10 miles. But I'm going to go 7 hours, so I need to multiply it by 7. And find out it's 437 and 5/10 miles. That represents miles. That represents my X. Right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to take a sheet of notebook paper. And on the top of the notebook paper, I just want you to write unit rates. And put your name on it. So I'm going to put my name. You put your own name. Don't put Mrs. Newell. Okay, this way I can stick it in my binder. And I'm going to take my glue stick or my bottle glue or my tape or whatever I have at home. And I'm going to fold this all up and flip it over while it's folded. Okay, and I'm just going to glue it onto my sheet of notebook paper. That way, if I need to go back and look at my notes on unit rate, I can do that, and this just isn't hanging out. So we have this glued in. We can now put this in our binder. So the next thing you're going to do is a con assignment, and then that's it for today, guys.